Welcome to Wildcat Science with Mrs. Haugo. This is Human Biology in our Psychology unit, Part 13. Today we are going to go over our psychology assessment project. So I'm excited to see what you come up with. So first off, please open up your psychology assessment and let's go along. So you're going to communicate what you learned in this unit. This project is an assessment where you will communicate what you learned about psychology. Sources of information are the Psychology Binder book, your notes, videos, and your homework, and it is going to be worth 50 points. There are 3 aspects to it. The first one is the poster. In the poster, you will need to communicate what you learned, pick 3 to 6 concepts that stuck with you to focus on in your poster, and below are the requirements. So the poster will show what you learned, will have a title, have color, have at least 6 pictures that are explained on the back of the poster, and is neat, uses correct spelling, grammar, and punctuation, and is a polished quality project, and we will talk more about that poster in a minute. Then there is a written portion. In this paper, you will need to communicate what you learned. Pick 3 to 6 concepts that stuck with you to focus on in your paper. These can be the 3 to 6 concepts you did on your poster, but they do not have to be. They could be different. Below are the requirements. The paper will communicate what you learned, will make connections to things you already knew, other subjects, things you plan to do in the future, information you can use in the future, observations you have made, stuff like that. It includes well-written paragraphs. I'm looking for quality over quantity, but the written portion should be at least 1 page long. The paper should be a polished quality product, and it shouldn't be rambling, nor should it be a list of information. It has an introduction, and it should have a conclusion, and it should use complete sentences, correct grammar, spelling, and punctuation. The third aspect is the psychology portfolio, which includes information and sources. The portfolio goes over the information we covered. Not all topics will be included in the paper or poster. In the portfolio table, indicate what information you incorporated into your assessment and tell me if it's in your poster or if it's in your paper. And then if it's not, I want you to write a sentence about what you learned from that. So let's take a look at our poster. Okay, you can see I made a template for your poster on Google Slides. This is not a mandatory template, it's just an idea to get started. You can use this template or you can do something different. And if it's something really different, like not using the Google Slides, just send me an email and I will say, yep, that sounds like it would work, or give you suggestions. So it says click to add subtitle. However, you could do pictures here. So you can insert an image. You could take an image and upload it from your computer, or you can search the web there. And you can see that there is room for 6. Obviously, you can move text boxes around and make some bigger or smaller and add other things if you would like to. And then on the quote-unquote back of the poster is where you get to explain what the images mean and how they show what you learned. Here's an example. Picture 1 is, and then you would tell me which picture is picture 1 and what it is. And I chose this image because, and then you would explain what the image is, what you learned, and stuff like that. And again, I have a template for explaining all 6 pictures. You don't have to use this template. If it's really different, again, you want to check with me, just send me an email. And the second thing is the written portion, where you're going to write several paragraphs, picking 3 to 6 concepts and telling me what you learned and making connections. And again, let's talk about those connections. So you have, you can make connections to things you already knew, to other subjects, things you plan to do in the future, information you can use in the future, and observations you have made. Now, you do not have to cover all of these topics for each concept, whichever ones make sense. And if other connections make sense for you to talk about, that's fine too. And again, the 3 to 6 concepts can be what you covered in your poster, but they don't have to be. And some people get confused and they think they have to cover everything, but I want you to focus on 3 to 6 and do a really high quality job on 3 to 6 instead of doing a quick job on everything. So our poster, our written portion, and then the portfolio. So this goes over our information and sources. And so starting out with our binder book, we read through chapter 2 and discussed it a little bit through our daily check-ins. And if it is found in your assessment, your paper or your poster, you'd write yes. And then if it was found, if you wrote about it in your paper, you would write paper, in paper. And then if you did not address it in either your paper or your poster, here you would write no. And then you would write a sentence about what you learned from this source of information. So for example, let's say you didn't include it in your information, in your poster or your paper. And so then you could say, from reading chapter 2, I learned, and let's say you talked about anecdotal research and some of the troubles that can come through relying too much on anecdotal research. So that's just an example. There are a lot of different things that are in that chapter. Quite a bit is in that chapter. So moving through these, another thing we talked about was the crash course in psychology. We did crash course number 1 and crash course number 2. And again, yes or no, and then in paper, on poster, or a sentence about what you learned from it. We also did a lot of stuff on the brain, and we took video notes on the brain. We took video notes on the brain, love, and relationships, and we wrote a relationship reflection paragraph. So again, yes or no, in paper, on poster, or a sentence, you learned about what you learned. And we also studied mental health. I want to make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see on your computer. So mental health, we did video notes on mental health. We did a values-driven packet, and we did a meditation and a reflection paragraph, and we also did a reflection paragraph on our values-driven life. And so again, yes or no, in paper, on poster, or a sentence about what you learned from that information or those exercises. And finally, personality. We took the personality test and we wrote a reflection, yes or no, and what you learned. Is it in the paper, is it on the poster, or a sentence? That is our portfolio, information and sources. If there's any confusion about something, please contact me, email me. And then finally, we have our rubric. You don't have to do anything here except look at it and follow it. So let's talk about this project. So we're going to work on this project for 2 weeks, and I'm hoping to have it done on May 20th, and then we'll play it by ear, but it would be nice to have a Google Meet so we can kind of all share our psychology assessments. So quickly going over the rubric for the poster. So it's based on a 4-point scale, and just like it said in your first piece of paper, these are the things you are going to be graded on. So clearly communicates what the students has learned, mostly, partially, and it's difficult to know what you learned. Title, proficient, you've got the title that I put there. Advanced has an improved, creative, or more interesting title. Color makes the poster visually interesting. It has sufficient color, a little color, no color. Pictures has 6 pictures, and all pictures are well explained. Pictures and explanations clearly connect to our psychology unit. Has 6 pictures, and each one is explained. And looking at it and approaching the criteria, the explanation of some of the pictures is confusing or not really related to our psychology unit, or you don't have 6 pictures. Okay, spelling, correct spelling, grammar, and punctuation. You are doing this on a computer, which checks your spelling, grammar, and punctuation. So don't turn anything in with a red or a blue line. Neatness. The poster is neat, organized, and clear, or mostly neat, partially neat, and not neat. And then the quality of the product. It is clearly a polished product or a finished product, mostly finished, and not a finished product. If you have any questions about that, let me know. And moving on to the rubric for the written portion, again on a 4-point scale, and communicates learning. What we are looking at is, I'm going to be grading you on these things that were found on the first page. So communicates in a way that is clear and coherent what the student learned on those 3 to 6 concepts, mostly and partially, or does not. And then making connections. Makes clear, coherent, and mature or insightful connections between each concept and things you already knew, other subjects, things you plan to do in the future, information you can use in the future, observations you have made, etc. And you don't do all of these things for each of the 3 to 6 concepts, because that gets kind of to be a lot. So you don't have to do all of these. Like, it's not a checklist. Just make sure that you are involving some connections with your concept. So mostly, partially, or not present. Well-written paragraphs. The written portion has well-written paragraphs, is easy to understand, and flows well. Or the written portion has mostly well-written paragraphs. The written portion is a bit rambling. It's basically a list of information. Introduction and conclusion has an interesting introduction and conclusion. It has an introduction and conclusion. Partial introduction and conclusion, or missing. Uses correct spelling, grammar, and punctuation. Again, the computer checks it for you. Make sure you don't turn it in with mistakes. And then the quality of the product. It is clearly a polished product. The written portion is high quality and is at least a page in length. Finished project, mostly finished. If it gets a little bit long, we don't want it to be too long, because then it probably has gotten a bit rambling. And then if it's less than a page, that would be a 1 on criteria. And then looking here, the poster is going to be worth 20 points. The written portion is going to be worth 20 points. Filling out your information portfolio table is 10, for a total of 50 points for our psychology assessment. Again, I look forward to seeing what you produce and what you learned. I will see you later.